June 4th, 1942. Morning. The vast Pacific Ocean. Clear skies. Deceptive calm, masking the storm about to erupt. Commander Mitsuo Fuchida stood on the bridge of the Akagi, the flagship of Japan's mighty Codebreakers, the Mobile Force. At 38 years old, Fuchida was no stranger to the thrill of aerial combat. Just 6 months earlier, he had led the devastating airstrike on Pearl Harbor, his voice crackling over the radio. Tora! 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 That attack had crippled the American Pacific Fleet, propelling Japan into a whirlwind of conquests across Southeast Asia and the Indian Ocean. Now, as the sun climbed higher, Fuchida felt the familiar surge of confidence. The Codebreakers was invincible. 4 fleet carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, escorted by battleships, cruisers, and destroyers, carrying over 250 aircraft, piloted by the Empire's finest aviators. Yet, beneath his crisp uniform, a dull ache throbbed in Fuchida's abdomen. Acute appendicitis had struck days before, forcing an emergency surgery aboard the Akagi. The doctors had grounded him no flying for the man who had bombed battleships from the skies. Instead, he was confined to the bridge as an observer, a role that chafed against his warrior spirit. Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo, the fleet's commander, paced nearby, his face etched with the weight of strategy. Their mission: seize Midway Atoll, a speck of land 1,300 miles northwest of Hawaii, to lure out and destroy the remnants of the U.S. carrier force. It was a trap, meticulously planned by Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of Pearl Harbor. Intelligence assured them the Americans were oblivious, their codes unbreakable. And as the fleet steamed at 24 knots, the first wave of aircraft launched at 4:30. M108 planes roaring off the decks toward Midway. Fuchida watched them climb into the sky, Zeros escorting bombers laden with high-explosive ordnance. The island's defenses would crumble under the assault. But reports trickled back. Anti-aircraft fire was fierce, and the runways remained intact. Nagumo frowned. A second strike might be needed. Deep in the hangars below, mechanics sweated in the humid confines, preparing reserve planes. Torpedoes hung from wings, ready for any enemy ships that dared appear. Unbeknownst to them, the trap was reversed. In a dim basement at Pearl Harbor's Station Hydro, Commander Joseph Rochefort and his crypt analysts had cracked JN-25, the Japanese naval code. For weeks, they pieced together intercepts pointing to AF Midway. A clever ruse confirmed it. Midway broadcast a fake water shortage, and Japanese signals echoed the bait. Admiral Chester Nimitz positioned his carriers Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown northeast of the atoll, hidden in ambush. The Americans knew the when, the where, and the how. By 7:15 a.m., scout planes reported enemy sightings. Vague but ominous. Nagumo hesitated. Should he rearm for land bombs or keep torpedoes for ships? The decision loomed like a gathering cloud. Fuchida leaned on the railing, scanning the horizon. The sea was empty, but tension coiled in the air. Little did he know, American torpedo bombers were already inbound, and above them, dive bombers circled unseen. The stage was set for catastrophe. As the clock ticked toward 9 a.m., the bridge of the Akagi buzzed with urgency. Nagumo's staff huddled over maps, debating the scout reports. 10 ships, bearing 320 degrees, crackled the radio from a float plane.
10 ships,
were they carriers,
bearing 320
cruisers?
degrees.
The ambiguity gnawed at them. Fuchida, still sidelined by his wound, offered quiet counsel, his experience from Pearl Harbor lending weight to his
We
words.
must regroup the remaining forces immediately. Inform the other commanders.
Nagumo nodded, but indecision gripped the
すんだ
admiral. The reserve aircraft below were armed with torpedoes
We
for
must
anti-ship strikes,
prepare for
but
the worst.
Midway's defenses demanded another bombing run. Switch to bombs, Nagumo ordered at 7:20 a.m. In the sweltering hangars, chaos erupted.
Switch to
Mechanics
bombs!
cursed under their
Switch to
breath
bombs!
as they wrestled heavy torpedoes from the plane's
In the
underbellies.
sweltering hangars,
The clang
chaos
of metal
erupted.
echoed through the steel caverns,
Mechanics cursed under
sweat-soaked
their
uniforms
breath as they-
clinging to bodies in the tropical heat. Bombs were hauled from magazines, secured in place. It was grueling work, each minute precious. Fuchida imagined the scene below. Fueled Zeros and valves crowded together, ordnance piled haphazardly in the rush. No time to stow the discarded torpedoes safely. They lay scattered like forgotten threats. Then, at 8:20 a.m., confirmation, American carriers spotted. Nagumo's face paled. Reverse, reload torpedoes. The hangars descended into frenzy again. Tools clattered, shouts overlapped. The mechanics, exhausted, hauled the bombs off and refitted torpedoes.
Reload torpedoes!
Fuel lines snaked across the decks. Aircraft
Tools
jammed
clattered,
wing to
shouts
wing.
overlapped.
The
mechanics,
Akagi,
exhausted,
once a
hauled
symbol
the
of
bombs
precision,
off.
now teetered on the edge of disaster, a floating arsenal of unsecured explosive. Meanwhile, American forces closed in. From the USS Enterprise, Lieutenant Commander Wade McCluskey led dive bombers in a desperate search. Low on fuel, they spotted the Japanese wake trails, a divine intervention. Below, torpedo squadrons from Hornet and Yorktown attacked first, drawing the Japanese Zeros down to sea level. Fuchida watched from the bridge as the devastators lumbered in, slow and vulnerable. Intercept. The Zeros dove like hawks, tracers stitching the sky. One by one, American planes plummeted into the waves, torpedoes harmlessly expended. Cheers rose from the Japanese crew. Victory seemed at hand. But Fuchida noticed the gap. The combat air patrol was committed low, the skies above empty. There were no fighters to guard against high-altitude threats. At 10:20 a.m., silence fell. The attacks ceased. Nagumo relaxed slightly, ordering the decks cleared for launch. 45 minutes remained to spot the planes. Fuchida's instincts screamed warning, but he said nothing. The pain in his side sharpened. A harbinger. Unseen, American SPD Dauntless bombers led by Dick Best peeled from the clouds at 10,000 feet. The trap snapped shut. Rochefort's Codebreakers had orchestrated this perfectly. Their intelligence turned Japanese arrogance into vulnerability. As the bombers aligned, Fuchida glanced up. A speck detached a bomb. Time stretched. The end began. 10:22 a.m. The world shattered. Fuchida's eyes locked on the bomb plummeting from Lieutenant Dick Best's Dauntless. It sliced through the air with lethal grace, punching through the Akagi's flight deck near the midship elevator. The detonation was cataclysmic, a blinding flash, a roar that drowned all sound. The shock wave hurled Fuchida against the bulkhead, his surgical wound tearing open in agony. Broken ankles screamed as he crumpled. Smoke billowed from the hangar below, where the bomb had ignited a hellish chain reaction. The hangars were a tinderbox, fueled aircraft packed tightly, unsecured torpedoes and bombs strewn about for the frantic rearming. Flames erupted instantly, racing through fuel vapors. Secondary explosions ripped through the deck torpedoes cooking off, bombs detonating in symphony. The massive carrier shuddered like a wounded beast, hull plates buckling. Fuchida struggled to his knees, blood seeping through his uniform. Admiral Nagumo stood frozen, his ashen face reflecting incomprehension. abandoned ship. Someone whispered. The Akagi was sovereign territory, emblem of the Emperor. To flee was unthinkable. Across the water, horror multiplied. To starboard, the Kaga erupted in a pillar of black smoke, her decks aflame from multiple hits. To port, the Soryu twisted under bomb strikes, the fires consuming her aviation fuel. 3 carriers mortally wounded in mere minutes, not by overwhelming numbers, but precise strikes at the fleet's most vulnerable moment. Fuchida staggered to the railing, heat blasting his face. Crewmen emerged from hatches, blackened and blistered, screaming for aid. Damage control parties fought valiantly, hoses spraying futile streams against the inferno. The American dive bombers had exploited the gap perfectly. With Zeros drawn low by torpedo attacks, the high-altitude assault met no resistance. Dick Best's bomb on Akagi was a masterstroke, piercing the heart. On Kaga, 4 bombs sealed her fate. Soryu took 3. The Hiryu, unscathed for now, launched a desperate counter-strike, but the balance had shifted irrevocably. Fuchida's mind raced back to Pearl Harbor's triumph. How had it come to this? Appendicitis had chained him here, a spectator to ruin. He tried to join the firefighters, but flames drove him back. Explosions rocked the ship again, ammunition magazines threatening total annihilation. Nagumo finally stirred, nodded evacuation. The bridge officers slid down ropes to the main deck. Fuchida's grip failing midway. He slammed into steel below, ankles shattering further. Sailors dragged him to the edge, lowering him to the cruiser Nagara alongside. As Nagara pulled away, Fuchida forced himself up. The Akagi burned like a funeral pyre, flames towering, hull listing. Men jumped into the oil-slicked sea, tiny against the blaze. The invincible WWII
Evacuate the Emperor to safety.
In 6 minutes, Japan's naval air power evaporated. The sea turned to fire, and smoke as the afternoon wore on. Fuchida collapsed on Nagara's deck, watched helplessly as the Hiryu joined her sisters. American bombers from Enterprise found her at 2:45 p.m., bombs ripping through her decks in another devastating strike. By evening, all 4 carriers' pride of the Imperial Navy were sinking hulks, scuttled by Japanese destroyers to deny capture. The toll was staggering. 3,057 men lost, 248 aircraft destroyed, including 110 veteran pilots whose expertise could never be replaced. Mechanics, ground crew, hundreds of skilled hands gone. The strategic initiative in the Pacific vanished beneath the waves. Fuchida's injuries demanded evacuation. Flown to Japan, he spent months in hospital beds, ankles mending slowly,
Rochefort,
his spirit
the unsung
fractured
hero.
deeper. He would later pen accounts of the battle, framing it through national pride, claiming the carriers were mere minutes from launching a myth debunked by logs, showing 45 minutes remained. Historians note his embellishments, perhaps to soften the blow of witnessing defeat from the bridge. The same man who had orchestrated Pearl Harbor's success, now reduced to observer. Back in Pearl Harbor, Joseph Rochefort's team celebrated quietly. Their code-breaking had turned the tide, yet recognition eluded them. Nimitz nominated Rochefort for the Distinguished Service Medal, but Washington brass, embarrassed by their own misjudgments, denied it twice. Rochefort, the unsung hero, was reassigned to a San Francisco dry dock, his genius sidelined. Only in 1985, 9 years after his death, did the Navy posthumously award the medal. Midway marked the war's pivot.
He converted to
Japan,
Christianity,
once on the offensive,
touring
shifted to
America.
defense.
His Pearl Harbor role, a shadow he confronted.
The Long Island hopping campaign began. American industrial might overwhelming depleted Japanese forces. Yamamoto's grand trap backfired spectacularly. His own death a year later in a targeted ambush, underscoring the intelligence edge. For Fuchida, the battle was personal irony. The appendicitis that spared him flight doomed him to watch the carnage. In post-war years, he converted to Christianity, touring America to preach peace. His Pearl Harbor role a shadow he confronted. I saw the hand of God at Midway, he reflected, attributing the defeat to divine intervention. The lessons endure. Hubris in codes thought unbreakable. The peril of indecision, and the razor-thin margin between victory and ruin. Nagumo's hesitation, the rearming chaos, it all converged in those fatal 6 minutes. The Pacific War, ignited at Pearl Harbor, found its turning point here, a testament to intelligence, timing, and the unforgiving sea. Decades later, the Battle of Midway stands as a cornerstone of World War II historiography, a case study in naval warfare's evolution. The carrier's loss crippled Japan's ability to project power, their veteran air crews irreplaceable amid mounting attrition. By war's end, Japan fielded desperate measures, kamikazes, human torpedoes, but the die was cast at Midway. American yards churned out 24 fleet carriers. Japan managed 3. The imbalance sealed the outcome. Fuchida's
Critics
story
debate his 5-minute myth,
defeat.
but his helplessness resonates that.
Biased,
the hero
offer
of.
a rare Japanese perspective, detailing the bridge's terror, the flames roared. Critics debate his 5-minute myth, but his helplessness resonates. The hero of Pearl Harbor, felled by illness, witnessing empire's eclipse. Post-war, Fuchida's evangelism bridged former enemies. He met American pilots, forging an unlikely bond. He died in 1976, his life an arc, from aggressor to peacemaker. Rochefort's vindication came slowly. Books like Shattered Sword by Jonathan Parshall and Anthony Tully dissected the battle, crediting hypo's cryptanalysts. The 2019 film Midway dramatized their role, though Hollywood liberties abound. Today, Midway Atoll is a wildlife refuge, its runways silent, a monument to the clash. The battle's tactics influence modern strategy, carrier vulnerability, the value of intelligence echoing cyber warfare today, and rapid decision-making. Drones and missiles evoke the dive bomber's precision strikes. Environmentally, the wrecks Akagi discovered in 2019 at 18,000 feet rest as underwater museums, ecosystems thriving on steel graves. Culturally, Midway inspires narratives of underdogs prevailing. America's miracle stemmed from preparation, not luck. Nimitz's bold ambush, McCluskey's fuel-strapped discovery. It unified a nation, accelerating war production. For Japan, it was a psychological blow, Yamamoto reportedly saying, "I fear we have awakened a sleeping giant." In education, Midway teaches resilience. Fuchida's fall from the rope, his broken body dragged to safety, symbolizes survival amid catastrophe.
Anniversaries draw veterans' descendants,
till the end,
sharing stories across divides.
Anniversaries draw veterans' descendants, sharing stories across divides. Ultimately, those 6 minutes encapsulate war's cruelty. Human error amplified by fate, turning triumph to ashes. The burning carriers remind us of hubris's cost, the thin line between dominance and downfall. As Fuchida gazed back at the inferno, he glimpsed not just a fleet's end, but an era's. The rising sun began its descent. The Pacific forever changed. For another surprise attack that changed the war, watch when Japan struck Pearl Harbor. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. more frontline stories await. Courage, chaos, unbelievable moments. From World War II